Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. What a finale to spoiler season for Streets of New Capenna. I mean, kind of a weird finale. Expected things to be wrapped up yesterday. They're still going on today. And actually, leaks. Yes, we've gotten quite a few leaks from the upcoming precons that are going to be spoiled, I believe, next week. But yeah, Denry Klin, editor-in-chief, broke it. Took about 3 seconds, so make sure you check that episode out at some point. Also, check the episode out on Lagrella the Magpie, and finally, the perfect commander for one of my favorite deck concepts of all time. And I'm not sure why I talk like that. Yeah, I've been up for quite a while. Anyways, another commander that was recently leaked is Oscar Rubbish Reclaimer, and this has got to be a reference to Oscar the Grouch, right? Well, regardless, this thing is pretty fantastic, so make sure you check it out at some point. But don't leave me just yet, because it's time for Tiny Tribal with Bess Soul Nourisher. This is a very spicy commander, and I think a lot of players are going to be excited about it. But before we talk about this commander, please thank Eddie in the comments below for all of his hard work during spoiler season. He is a fantastic resource for bouncing ideas off of, and yeah, just blame Eddie also if I make any mistakes. Anyways, let's jump into it. Bess Soul Nourisher is a 1/1 human citizen that costs 1 green-white. She has, whenever one or more other creatures with base powered toughness 1/1 enter the battlefield under your control, put a ++1 counter on Bess Soul Nourisher. Also, whenever Bess attacks, each other creature you control with base powered toughness 1/1 gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of ++1 counters on Bess. So yeah, Tiny Tribal, right? Bess is all about creatures that have base power toughness 1/1. Keep that in mind, base power and toughness. So she cares about what is actually written on the card. You know, if there's, an anthem effect or counters on that creature, she does not care. All she cares about is what is written on the card. Is it 1/1? Awesome. Then it's going to be great with Bess. Because with this Tiny Tribal deck, when you get those tiny creatures in play, well, Bess is going to get bigger, get more and more counters, and then on attack, well, she is going to pump all of your other creatures a ton. So the more 1/1s you get into play, the better. That being said, obviously there is a limitation on this commander in that it says whenever one or more other creatures. So if you get a ton of creatures at once, and we'll talk about some spells that, well, do that, but still it can be pretty effective with this commander, you're only getting 1 counter on Bess. And of course, obviously there are plenty of other ways to get counters on Bess, and those are going to be counted as well, and we'll talk about some of those things too. Now, before we jump into those cards, though, a quick reminder that there is a link in the description below with these Commander Quick Takes, and it's going to have all the cards I talked about on this episode because, well, when new cards are spoiled and players get excited about a commander, well, some cards that work well with that commander might go up in price. So, yeah, if you're thinking of picking up some of these cards, it might be better to do so sooner rather than later. And now that said, let's jump into the cards. So, first up, yeah, obviously there are a ton of low-to-the-ground creatures that are fantastic with this commander, including, well, basically, all those one-mana dorks that, well, get picked on every now and then, because, they're mana dorks. They don't do much. They just, tap for mana, which is great. But now with Bess, again, you can actually swing and hit hard with those mana dorks as well. So yeah, Llanowar Elves, Absence Pilgrim, etc., etc., etc. There are a ton. And speaking of a tiny tribal creature that's not so tiny, well, how about Serra Ascendant? Now, Serra Ascendant, yes, just has a base power and toughness 1/1, but it is nowhere near a tiny creature. It is a 1/1 with lifelink for just a white mana, and it says as long as you have 30 or more life, Serra Ascendant gets +5/+5 and has flying. Yeah, in a format like Commander, we start off at 40 life, so, yeah, this is a 6/6 flying lifelink on turn 1. That also is going to get pumped by your Commander swinging. So yeah, that's going to be pretty good. Next up, let's move on to 3 mana creatures that are just little 1/1s as well, like Mana Gorger Hydra, Champion of Lambhold, and Mirror Entity. Now, obviously, it's kind of tough to beat the play, you know, where you play a Mandork on turn 1, and then turn 2 get your commander out, and that's probably what you should do, but also, you know, you can really quickly get out one of these as well, and they can, well, hit really hard. Mana Gorger Hydra is just a little 1/1 Hydra with trample, but whenever a player casts a spell, we get a counter on Mana Gorger Hydra. And yes, this counts any player, and yeah, in a game of Commander with 4 players, there's going to be plenty of spells, and this thing can get massive in absolutely no time. On top of it actually getting pumped from our commander as well. Next up, Champion of Lambhold, also just a 1/1, and it says creatures with power less than Champion of Lambhold's power can't block creatures you control, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1 counter on Champion of Lambhold. So, like our commander, this one is going to get larger the more and more creatures come into play, and actually, again, this one doesn't have that, you know, restriction that it's like 1 or more, it's just, hey, whenever any other creatures, so if 10 creatures come into play at the same time, you get 10 counters on this. But yeah, regardless, it's going to take absolutely no time at all for this to have enough power and toughness, you know, especially, you know, when you attack with your commander and pump your entire team, including this, for your opponents not to be able to block your creatures. And of course, with your creatures being unblockable, well, that could just be a fun time to pump them even further with Mirror Entity. Mirror Entity is just a 1/1 changeling, and it has pay X until end of turn. Creatures you control have base power and toughness XX and gain all creature types. So with this one, now you need to be careful when you activate this. Do not activate it before combat. I mean, don't activate it for, you know, any more than 1, obviously. And why would you activate it for 1? All your creatures are 1/1s. But yeah, again, after you swing and get your commander's attack trigger and pump all of your creatures with that, then you can activate Mirror Entity. So pump however much mana you want into that, you know, 5, 6, 7, whatever you want, and then all your creatures become, you know, again, if you put 7 into this, 7 7s. All creature types is nice, and I'm sure that's relevant in some circumstances, but yeah, 7 7s on top of the additional pumping that your commander is giving too, and any other effects as well. Next up, yes, tokens can still be very impactful in this deck, so let's talk about cards like Scoot Swarm, Secure the Waste, and Call the Coppercoats. Like I said before, though, keep in mind the commander does have a restriction. Again, it is 1 or more 1/1s coming into play, so you're only getting 1 counter if you're getting multiple creatures into play at the same time. That being said, these cards can still be very effective. Scoot Swarm is a 1/1 insect with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. And if you control 6 or more lands, you create a token that's a copy of Scoot Swarm instead. And yeah, that can get out of hand very quickly. Now, obviously, if you're getting more than 1/1 into play at a time, again, that still only triggers your commander once, but still, having more creatures in play that are 1/1s is always a good thing. Because, yeah, if you've got a ton of these insects in play, again, they're all going to get pumped when your commander swings, so yeah, have fun with that. So a card like Secure the Waste can still be very impactful. Again, it's only going to trigger your commander once. It's going to put X/1/1 white warrior creature tokens onto the battlefield, but still, I mean, right before your turn, you know, put a decent amount of mana into that X, get 1 counter on your commander, which is nice. Your commander's probably going to have other counters too. And then, yeah, next turn, you've got a decent-sized army and swing and pump them a ton with your commander. And then, of course, another card that can really help us out in a lot of situations is called the Coppercoats, which says choose any number of target opponents, and it's got a strive cost of 1 and a white for each opponent we choose. Outside the first one, it says create X/1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, or X the number of creatures those opponents control. So we can essentially utilize our opponent's army sizes against them and make a ton of tokens at once. Again, we might only get 1 counter on our commander, but still, if we get 20 creatures, that's still 20 creatures we can attack with, and that get pumped by our commander. So yeah, if you are looking at token cards though, obviously keep in mind if they are giving you 1/1s or, you know, not 1/1s. If it's not a 1/1, it's not going to get pumped, so maybe look elsewhere. And of course, when it comes to protecting our commander and our army, well, we've got some fantastic cards that can help out with that, with cards like Mother of Runes, Sylvan Safekeeper, and Eerie Interlude. Mother of Runes has tap target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. Yeah, giving protection from a color can help in a lot of circumstances, especially against target removal for our commander. Speaking of which, Sylvan Safekeeper has sacrifice a land target creature you control gains Shroud until end of turn. And I probably should have mentioned that, yes, these 2 creatures are both 1/1s for just 1 mana, so yeah, low to the ground, very efficient creatures that can actually, again, hit hard thanks to our commander as well. Also, another card to consider might be one like Eerie Interlude, which says exile any number of target creatures you control, return those cards to the battlefield under those control at the beginning of the next end step. So this can be good wrath protection, though do keep in mind if you are getting your commander, exiled with this to protect it, you're losing out on those counters, but sometimes that is needed. That being said, you will also benefit from, any ETBs or LTBs that you might have from other fantastic creatures in this deck, and yes, you will get one trigger from your commander to get a counter back on it when those creatures come back into play. But next up, of course, there are ways where we can speed up that counter production and get a ton of counters on our commander very quickly with things like Pier, Hardened Scales, and Panharmonicon. Pier is a 1/1, and unfortunately Toothy can't join in on the fun because it is blue, but still, if one or more counters we put on a permanent your team controls, that many plus one of each of those kinds of counters are put on that permanent instead. So yeah, double up the counters that our commander is getting, that sounds good to me. Speaking of which, Hardened Scales says if one or more +1/+1 counters we put on a creature you control, that many +1/+1 counters are put on instead. So yeah, for a 1-mana enchantment, that's a ton of value. Speaking of value, Panharmonicon says if an artifact or creature entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers initial time. So yes, I've said this before, I'll say it again, more counters on your commander, and also doubling up any other ETBs that you might have. But of course, outside of our commander pumping our team, we can also freely pump our team with other things because again, our commander only cares about base power and toughness. Anthems don't come into play with that. So we are free to pump our team with something like Collective Blessing, which is a fantastic +3/+3 on top of, all of our other pump effects. Or how about Beastmaster Ascension, which says whenever a creature you control attacks, you may put a quest counter on Beastmaster Ascension, and if it's got 7 or more quest counters on it, our creatures get +5/+5. Yeah, swinging with 7 creatures in this deck is very easy, so have fun with your massive creatures. And speaking of massive, well, we can get even more counters on our commander and on basically everything with Cathar's Crusade. It says whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1 counter on each creature you control. This can definitely get out of hand in this kind of a deck, and yes, this one does not care, about the 1 or more clause, so have fun getting a ton of tokens into play and making everything massive. But of course, you can also just make your commander absolutely massive and, yeah, get a ton of counters on your commander with Solidarity of Heroes. It has a strive cost of 1 and a green. It says choose any number of target creatures, double the number of +1 counters on each of them. So, yeah, for just 2 mana though, we just double the amount of counters on our commander to pump our team twice as much. Yeah, this sounds good. And of course, there is a lot of fantastic ways to draw cards in this tiny tribal deck with things like Esper Sentinel, Toski, and Shamanic Revelation. Though I think Esper Sentinel's like a $25 card or so, but still, just gonna bring it up here. Anyways, it's a 1/1 that says whenever the opponent casts their first non-creature spell, each turn, draw a card unless that player pays X for X's Esper Sentinel's power. So, yeah, it's kind of like Rhystic Study, but Mystic Remora-ish. Anyways, yeah, if we can pump this further, which obviously we can in a lot of ways, it's harder for our opponents to pay for that tax. Next up, Toski is also a 1/1 that can't be countered. It has Indestructible, it has to attack each combat of Fable, which is great, and whenever a creature we control deals combat damage to a player, we draw a card. Again, this deck can be very aggressive, swing very quickly, and we've got plenty of ways to get damage through, so yeah, let's draw a ton of cards with this. Or, we can just take advantage of our massive army and draw a ton of cards with Shamanic Revelation. It's going to draw us a card for each creature we control, and on top of that, we gain 4 life for each creature we control, power 4 or greater. So, yeah, if we just have a bunch of 1/1s, maybe let's go to combat first, swing with them for, a lot, and then yeah, then they're definitely going to have more than 4 power when we cast this second main phase. But now as this episode is coming to a close, it's time for me to give you my final thoughts on Bess Soul Nourisher. Yeah, I definitely like this different kind of a take on a go-wide strategy that really heavily benefits you for just investing a lot into having creatures that have exactly a base power and toughness of 1/1. There's a lot of different synergies that you can work with, and you can definitely make use out of some creatures that, well, again, like Mana Dorks, they're good in some decks, yeah, absolutely, but in this deck, they're not only good for mana, but they're also good for swinging at your opponents and hitting them for a ton. So yeah, definitely an exciting commander for a good amount of players out there. And yeah, speaking of exciting cards, make sure you check out my other exciting quick takes. And actually, I think this is going to be the last quick take of this week. But don't quote me on that. You never know. Something massive could get spoiled overnight, and then, I just happen to roll over, check my phone, and then all of a sudden I can't sleep, and then I'm back at it. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one.